How sweet. I just won't breathe heavy. Okay. All right. Want me to move it up?
Yeah, it's kind of by design. We don't want to pick up things you don't want to be heard saying. But that means we have to be very deliberate when we speak into it.
Okay. Oh. Not that close to me.
Not that deliberate.
Sorry, on, man.
No, I turned mine off and it was still going. Oh, yeah, it's that one down there. Wow.
You know what? It's just such
Maybe it's me. Nice loud voice anyway.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. We got the mics figured out, so I'm going to call our library board meeting to order. And the first thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from, wow, 12/10/2020. And we presented those, so I guess we don't have any minutes to approve, or do we?
So you
Yes,
should
we
have a
do.
revised agenda.
We do, I see it
Yeah,
here.
sorry about that.
So, all right, approval of minutes from the last meeting.
I'd make a motion to go ahead and approve the minutes.
Don makes the motion. Anyone second it?
I'll second it.
All right,
yes.
Charlene. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, minutes passed. Okay, now we'll have the report of the librarian.
Oh,
Assuming
substitute.
that's Ray.
Yeah, substitute librarian.
I was going to say I was trying to think of the word. I couldn't think of the best word. The interim.
Interim. There we go.
Interim. So recruitment update.
Yeah. Thank you. So we took our job announcement, job description. We sent it off to the state librarian's office. We had a meeting with 2 members of the state librarian's office. Ironically, one of them used to have Mr. Kistner as a PE teacher. And Joy was in on the meeting as well. They had a couple little suggestions for us. We made those changes and we got the announcement out this week, earlier this week. We'll leave it open. We're leaving it open until filled, but our first review is going to be the first week of April. We've listed it in 11 different websites. The state librarian's office gave us a series of 4 or 5 that we've listed it in, as well as the League of Oregon Cities, the Association of Washington Cities, and the International City County Manager Association. So we'll start getting some applications in. I think we actually have already received one, and we'll keep tabs with you and let you know how that goes. Assuming that we get a pool of candidates, a good pool of candidates to choose from by the end of this month or early April, we'll look to set some interviews up probably mid-April, probably the 3rd week in April-ish, somewhere around there, 3rd, 4th week. And we'll go from there. And just to remind you, if there are two of you who would like to sit in on that interview process, you're more than welcome to do that. I have two panels that I set up. One is a technical skills panel. The other is a panel that's more about culture and fit. And then we come together and we have a discussion about the candidates and rank them and slug it out, so to speak. I will request that if anybody wants to sit in on that, that you have read the book, The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni. I require all of my management team to read that book, as well as any counselors who are wishing to sit on that panel. And if you need a copy of that, let me know, and we're happy to supply that for you as well.
Mhm.
So when you say review the first week of April, that's reviewing the resumes that come, or the applicants that come in? Okay.
Yeah, correct.
And then from that, pool the interviews come out of.
Correct,
Right.
yeah. So we say 5-ish. Could be 7, 8, could be 4. But generally we try and get at least 5 in our
Is
interview
that
pools.
5 applicants or 5 interviews?
5 applicants to interview.
Okay.
Yeah.
Selection process, they've already gone ahead and gone through all the applications on and then determined what the top 5 were.
Correct, yeah. So we'll have a scoring matrix related to the job description. We will, certain things are weighted, veterans preferences, for instance, in the state of Oregon is required. So we go through that whole thing. We score them based strictly on as quantifiable of a system as you can, and then we invite the top candidates in for an interview process.
Okay. Anybody else have any
Nope.
questions about that? All right. Brandon, financial update.
Oh, we have a couple other items before we get to Brandon. Kevin, I'm sorry.
No, they're not on mine.
Or mine.
Are you looking on the revised one, the yellow one?
It's one sheet.
I don't have a yellow one.
I don't know. Mine just goes from recruitment update to Brandon.
So
Yeah.
you should have a revised agenda.
One sheet.
It's the back of the,
Yeah, I don't have, this one's blank on the back. Okay.
Yeah, mine too. No, I didn't get one either.
my apologies.
Okay, well, you got a couple more things to go
Yes,
over then.
sorry.
All right.
Real quick. The needs assessment, Rose is still involved in that process. She's volunteering to take part. We've held a meeting with the architects, just Rose and I, and then we had a follow-up where we included Brandon to talk about funding and potential funding sources. That continues to move forward. We're at a point right now where because we took that pause because of COVID and not knowing what was going on, feeling like we need to maybe step back a little bit to kind of remind the public of the process and the work that's been done. And so we're talking about some scoping within the contract. It may cost us a little bit of money to go back and have them repeat some of those things, but we just think it's probably better to step back a little bit, kind of re-engage the public, and then begin to move forward again. So you should be seeing some information on that shortly.
All right, any questions about that?
No.
Okay.
At our last meeting in January, you asked for an update on the bequest that was left for the library. Essentially, it's still in the lease, and I believe the lease is up at the end of this year. At which point in time, then the property is going to be sold, and the revenues will be distributed to all of the charitable organizations or those who were part of the bequest.
All right, kind of where it's been for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now Brandon.
There we go. So, they do not. So what I've asked Brandon to do is we're going to give you the exact same documents that we shared with the city council a couple of meetings ago, which will have all of the Q2 information. He'll touch on that kind of citywide real
Thank
quick.
you.
And then he'll bring that down to strictly what that means for the library and the library fund as well.
All right. Okay, thank you for giving me a chance to walk through kind of your financial update. I'm gonna still raise because apparently mine's not happy. So what you have before you, as Ray mentioned, is a copy of the second quarter update that we gave to the city council. Things look significantly better than our first quarter. When you only have 3 months to weigh kind of what's happening, and especially in the middle of a pandemic, it does make things a little trickier to figure out exactly what a full 12-month picture is going to look like. So the difference in this report from the first quarter is primarily the property taxes. Those came in November significantly higher than we had anticipated, and then we'd projected with the county. So at this point, we had budgeted citywide $4.2 million in property taxes for the year, property tax receipts, and we are now anticipating $4.5 million. The primary jump in the property tax revenues going to the police department levy and the library levy, so directly benefiting the library itself. At this point, we've received approximately 90% of the property tax revenue for the year that we're going to get, so we feel fairly confident in that assessment using that Q2 figure, and I don't anticipate that it will swing in either direction.
You have 2 more disbursements, don't you?
We typically get monthly disbursements from the county, and so we'll keep getting stuff all the way up till June, at which point then we'll cut it off for the fiscal year. But we do have two additional reports, quarterly updates basically, to deliver. So each of those quarters may have slight adjustments for kind of trend based on what's happening. But like I said, I don't anticipate a swing in either direction. Going through the rest of that document, the things that will primarily impact the library. So the service charges section, these first sections are all related to revenue. That's kind of the biggest and most essential component of our budget, given that if we don't have the revenue, we don't have the expenditures. So the service charges remain relatively unchanged, and you can see in the bar graph there. The green indicates what we had budgeted for a fiscal year. The red is what we had projected at the end of the first quarter, so through the end of September. And the purple reflects this most recent adjustment, which is data through the end of December. So the service fees did go down a little bit more. A lot of that is due to COVID and city closures, and that includes the library as far as I think in there it talks about library fees overall being down just because there hasn't been that same kind of cycle through the door. So overall, the service fees are still down, but did not change much from the first quarter projection. The last section that impacts the library is other revenues. And so other revenue is up 119% citywide, primarily due to grant receipts at both the library and in our community and economic development department. So the grant receipts specifically we're talking about for the library would be the Lynn County Youth Activities Grant that I think is now closed. Right. So that was a big swing in that we weren't anticipating. So through December, at least as part of our budget process. But you can see that projection did not change between Q1 and Q2. So what does that mean for the library specifically? Of course, I just turned that one off when I did that. I'm going to share a little spreadsheet with you. I do love spreadsheets. Yeah. It's a little small, but we'll make do. Thanks. Okay. So what you're looking at, and the columns that I think are most pertinent to you all, would be the 2021 budget, the Q1 projection, and the Q2 projection. So specifically looking at the library, you can see kind of the differences in what we'd started out with for the fiscal year and kind of where we've gone through the rest of this process. So specifically, this is the property tax line that we talked about. That was the biggest swing in the quarterly reports. I anticipate that the library will end with about $500,000 in property tax revenue for the current fiscal year, or just about $50,000 more than budgeted. Interest earnings are down for the year, so you can see it's kind of had interest earnings throughout the years have kind of gone up and down. So way down in the 2000s as we were climbing back out of the Great Recession, I guess it's called. And then in the 2018 and 2019 fiscal years, we certainly saw interest earnings all the way up to $11,000, which was pretty significant. Due to COVID, we don't anticipate that same level of interest earnings. Interest earnings bottomed out, as you probably know, semi-recently. They are currently working their way back out, albeit very slowly. So I have revised that interest projection down to $8,000 for the year. And then fees and franchises, and basically this is your late fees and any kind of out-of-city library cards. We're projecting about $4,900 for the fiscal year. The personnel expenditures are relatively close to what was originally budgeted at $235,000 for the year, and that, depending on the timing of a new library services director, then that may likely change again for Q3. So, if anything, that's going to come down a little bit more, resulting in additional monies in the fund balance for the library. The materials and services budget, now that the spending freeze has been lifted across the city, my office has seen a significant uptick in expenditure processing. So I don't anticipate that that's going to fall very far from its original budget as well. We did not have any planned capital this year. And of course, we will still make the $13,000 transfer to the project and equipment reserve that's available for the library should they need something specific and not typically part of operations. So all that being said, at the end of the year, I project a fund balance of just under $500,000. Yes, that is about 13.46 months. So we'll say 13 in the finance world. 13 months of expenditures. We could essentially operate the library for 13 months without any revenue coming in. However, given that the library budget is relatively small, any change in expenditures is quickly noticed in that bottom line. And so I have a forecast for you that goes out. So you see that 13 months quickly drops through 2025. And then in that fifth year, 2026, we're showing a fund balance of about 6 months, which is what the council has asked for, and a $258,000 fund balance. So we're right where we need to be as far as council goals and desires, and the budget committee, and hopefully we will be able to stay there.
Are all our funds that you receive deposited in LGIP?
A majority, yes. We bring over cash over to Umpqua, which is our local bank here, in the event that we need it to pay bills. I keep a very small amount, honestly, here, about $350,000, which can go away in a
So the
hurry.
general fund is at Umpqua then, and then you use the LGIP.
The cash is split. We don't specify whether it's general fund monies in Umpqua or wastewater funds over in LJIP. It's all kind of combined, and then interest earnings on each of those funds are distributed based on the cash balances for each of the funds. And so we keep as much as possible in LGIP because that's kind of our higher interest earning cash account. And then the city has also begun investing outside of LGIP through the bond market, some equities, in order to try to get a better interest earnings, a better interest
Those
return.
are all insured so that you don't have
No,
a chance
bonds
of
are not.
losing.
They are not insured, but we do work with a team that the city has chosen in the past to kind of help facilitate that process and monitor that to the best that we can. Now, bonds are certainly a lot more secure for us, and typically where a very large majority of our funding does go.
Are those basically municipal bonds and that you're investing in?
Yes, for the most part, we do have a few treasury bonds that we have invested in recently. And then, like I said, our equities are extremely low, but just a few that are deemed safe, so to speak. The other day, we did an equity purchase for Apple shares. But all of that benefit, we hope, will exceed the LGIP interest earnings, which at this point, they just reduced that again down to 0.6%. So it's almost nothing. So we're hoping we can do better outside of that.
It's better in 0.01.
That's very true.
Can we talk about the personnel line for a moment?
Sure.
So there's been a vacant position for 2 months so far. So there's a savings there. And also the staff hours were cut back.
Mm-hmm.
What's the forecast for bringing staff back to full hours? And then so if we don't hire somebody in the librarian position till, say, May, there could be up to 4 months worth of savings.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me a little bit about how all that flows together, and particularly, I'm just concerned about the people who work in the library whose hours have been cut.
Sure.
And what the plan is for all that.
So I can't speak to the hours piece. So I will, when we get there, I'll defer that piece to Ray, because that'll be as interim director his decision to make. I can speak to the vacancy savings. At this point, we've actually only had 1 month's savings in the library services director position because of essentially an agreement where the prior director, Rose, call her Rose, she decided to remain on the books until February 15th. And that way there was an advantage to her from a health benefit standpoint, vacation accruals, retirement, blah, blah, blah.
I was wondering about that PTO part.
Right. So, and then everything is cashed out for any employee when they depart. So any remaining vacation, and then a final retirement contribution and so on and so forth. So we haven't had much vacancy savings in that. When the data in this report is generated through the end of December. And so it doesn't take into account yet the vacancy savings that I'm projecting for the vacancy in the director position. Yes, any extension in however long it takes for us to get a library director certainly will add available dollars to the fund balance. And we're probably looking at $5,000 to $6,000. That's a rough estimate. $5,000 to $6,000 a month in vacancy savings for the director position in and of itself. So I think the third quarter forecast will better reflect that piece. As far as the vacancy saving, not vacancies, but the hours reductions, up until just this last month, actually through the end of the February payroll run, the library staff had been able to augment the reduction of hours using COVID dollars. And so you're still seeing that roll through our personnel expenditures, even though we will have revenue from the state of Oregon to offset it. And so we haven't realized yet any reduction of hours savings in this fund. And so again, Q3 will probably reflect some, but Q3 cuts off in March. So there'll be 1 month of time in which we'll actually realize the full impact of reduced hours. So really, I think we'll see what it looks like kind of at the end of the fiscal year, unless hours change again. So, and for that piece, I'll defer that way. Oh, he needs his mic back.
So one reason that we didn't do an interim librarian is when I have the staff there doing some of the things Rose used to do, and because they're doing those things, I justifying them some additional hours. So for instance, Joy was at 30 hours, or we had an employee at 30 hours. She's getting about 25 to 28 hours a week right now. The other employee that was at 30 hours is getting between 22 and 25, and then the 20-hour employee is still at 20. What we're seeing with COVID, quite honestly, is the demographics that use the library. For instance, our library is generally young families and senior citizens, and senior citizens just aren't using anything. They're not going out. They're staying home. They're just not out and about. And so our user numbers are, you can see in here, are just not what they normally have been and aren't tracking what they've normally been. So once we start seeing that demand increase and the COVID restrictions are lifted, and as people get vaccinations, particularly senior citizens, they'll come back and start using the library again. And then we'll start increasing hours again as well, and hopefully go back to the old schedule and continue with business as usual.
So you don't think that increasing the hours is going to make a difference? Do you think that the way that it's set up now, does that impact?
I don't believe so, and I say that based on history. We increased the library's hours 2 years ago. We expanded our open hours, and our users actually went down. So I guess an acronym I would say is Kevin runs a church. Just because Kevin offers more services on Sunday doesn't mean he's going to get more people.
Actually, that's not true.
Okay.
If I add a service, I'll get more people. So I think there is a valid argument to say reduced hours reduces. I'm not even sure how you can say it doesn't.
Well,
You're
history
explaining
demonstrates
it. Yeah,
that it doesn't.
Well,
So
I know, I hear what you're saying.
Sure.
I don't know. I haven't looked at the history, so I can't say I agree with it or not.
sure.
But the hours right now are super lit. What are the hours now?
They're open from noon to 6. Yeah.
Pretty limited.
Noon to 4 on Friday and Saturday?
Yeah.
I did appreciate seeing the board out here in front with the library hours listed
Absolutely.
on for the community. That was
So COVID restrictions right now, we have it limited to 10 people in at a time.
Yeah, I was going to wait for new business, but that was my other thing.
Yeah,
Drop,
and it's never full.
with the drop to, are they still having to make an appointment though?
Well, kind of. Usually what happens is they knock on the door
Okay.
and they go let them in. So we prefer people make an appointment. It's just because we don't want to have say you have a large family of 6 come in, and then another large family of 6 comes in, and we got to say a couple of you have to wait outside.
Right.
So we ask people to, but for the most part, people come, they knock on the door, and they come in.
Because more than the hours, I kind of think that appointment thing
Mhm.
may be limiting some people.
Sure,
If they
potentially.
don't want to call and make an appointment.
Or they're like me and forget to do it. and find yourself in front of the library and think, oh, crud, I forgot the
Yeah.
appointment.
So, okay, go ahead.
Yep. Yeah. So as
But
we
I will tell you, if I add a service, more people come. So,
okay, well then I'm surprised you're not averaging 4 or 5 services every Sunday.
there is a method to how you have to do that.
Right.
So, but that's not, I mean, the church is totally different than the library. So,
But it was a poor example on my part then. Yeah. So again, as we see,
no, because Catholic churches, they add services all the time.
Catholic churches can't have added services. We're actually limited right now.
Are you?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm smiling underneath the mask.
That's okay. I'm smiling too. We're smiling too. Yeah. Yeah. So as we start seeing the COVID restrictions lift, and we'll start to see more demand, and just like any other business, we'll start increasing and bring things back to normal. So I think you'll start to see that sooner than later now that more and more people are getting vaccinated and restrictions are being lifted. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll get back to that. Absolutely.
One question that I have, and this may not be the appropriate place or time, but you mentioned that one of the library employees is picking up some of the slack of what Rose would have been doing. My question is she being compensated for doing that, or is she still receiving the same salary? Or
so the things that it's the same hourly rate. The things she's doing though are certainly within her job description capabilities. It's not out of class work. It's simplistic things. It's additional hours for some additional cataloging. It's just creating some extra time for her to do some of the things that she needed to do. The other employee is right now spending time tracking down overdue books because we didn't really do anything for overdue books for a long time. And now they're trying to track that down. So that's phone calls and letter writing and those kinds of things. So it's not administrative type work in any way. It's just some of the other little things.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add one note. So just for the sake of review, I did put a $20,000 reduction in the personnel services line, assuming a vacancy for the library director. Didn't change anything else on here. That at the end of that 5-year period resulted in 6.67 months, which is maybe half a month above where it was before I put that 20,000 in. So it does benefit certainly. But again, really depends on how long that position is vacant for. And I think from the interim director's standpoint, the sooner we have a library director, the better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brandon. All right, so statistics, which are inside your packet here, and I don't know if you need to say anything about these or.
Yeah, so I just want to point a couple of things out. If you look at the particularly the second page, the longer page, if you look at some of the items, they have asterisks next to them. And I just want to point out that means that there's something missing in one of the previous 5 years. So either the category has been added in the past 5 years, the category has been taken away. For instance, books on tape. Nobody has cassette players anymore.
Oh.
Or some of it has changed. And so I've been working with quite a bit with the Albany Library and their data person. His name is Jeremy, who's been really great and a lot of help. So we're trying to figure out exactly what some of these mean and don't mean, and how. So like new, for instance, how long is that book new?
Yeah.
Some books are new for a month. Some books stay out there and they're new for several months. So we're going to try and work on ways to standardize some of that data in the next couple of months. So some of these numbers may change and look kind of funny in the next little bit, and I'm going to work with you all on that data to make sure that we all understand what it means and where it's derived from. But I just wanted to point that out to you that, so for instance, if you look at auto manuals, if you go to the library, actually, there's that central area by the computer kiosks. They're on the shelf right there. If you're looking at their computers, they're on the left towards the front door. They're just not checked out anymore. They're still there, but they don't check them out. So in the 5 years, they used to check them out, and then they don't check them out, but people are still using them. But we don't have any way of knowing if people are using them. So we actually looked at some of those books similar to that, actually in that same section. We found some books where from the 80s, and the bindings were still stiff, like they had like never been opened or only opened once or twice. So we're going to start going through some of that in the collection. Matter of fact, the staff was happy to get rid of many of them yesterday while I was there. So we're going to kind of go through and try and make sure it's consistent data and that you're comparing apples to apples as we move forward. So, but we'll work with you on that as we go through to standardize that information.
It's a huge drop from February to March.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I was really wondering about the, like, the
Yeah,
statistics
I'll,
just don't- they
I
just
can
don't
double-
jive.
Yeah, I can double check that, but I'll pretty sure that's what was in there. I'm wondering if when you ran the report, if that didn't total the
Yes.
2 months up.
Because DVDs in March, I can't believe just 100. I don't think the March stats are correct, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
'Cause that's one of the most-
Well, March this is only the
Oh, this is
11th of
just
March.
June. That's true. When did he run this to? March? What date?
He just ran it literally
Okay,
the other
so
day.
that's why.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
only probably half the month.
Yeah.
So what I should have done is given you February and January.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about
Because
that.
until you said
That
that.
was not very accurate.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I was
March
gonna say,
is
wait a
I,
minute, this
You're
is
right,
only
March
the
isn't
11th.
over. You're right. Okay, now it makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the next page is just the,
Yeah, it's a little big.
Oh, and there you've got March again
Right.
compared to February, and that
Yeah.
we should
yeah.
have
But if
done
you,
January and February.
if you multiply the amount by 4, then you're going to get closer to what the statistics were on previous months.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is only the 11th of March, so
Yeah.
it's not very valid.
Okay. I thought that for a minute I'd lost.
Thanks, Ray, for
Wait a minute.
getting those. And then we need to, looks like we need to approve this library policy manual.
Oh,
Yeah. So my understanding in talking to Kevin is there were still a couple little things that Rose had corrected and that you hadn't seen the actual final draft. So I wanted to make sure you saw that to approve before I took it to council for adoption.
Yeah, so is this something we can take and take it with us then
Absolutely. Yeah.
before we approve it? Because, I mean, I don't really want to approve it before reading it. Do you guys?
do
If you
we,
haven't read it, I think it'd be wise to go ahead and wait until our next.
Sure.
Well, I have read it, but I haven't read it since, because remember Rose was making some
she was gonna make some
changes,
Yeah.
and I have
corrections.
not read it. I don't know if
Correct.
anybody
Yeah.
has.
I
I have.
Okay, you have. Dawn has. I think this is the first time I've actually seen the final.
Well, we know that Rose did include the corrections that were talked about, although I can't remember item by item what the corrections were, but I know
I think they were just minimal, weren't they?
they were.
Some,
They were typographical type.
yeah,
Oh,
typographical type
Yeah,
things.
and
That's
then-
all they were.
I don't-
Yeah.
And then
I've
I
read
think
it
that
before.
Legia just made it pretty for us. She
Yeah, she said
stylized
she
it for
was
us.
working with it.
Yeah.
So I don't really have a problem approving
Okay.
it today.
Yeah. but
Whatever you're
nothing
comfortable with.
changed that much.
No, I think it was just some minor things that we were that she made some
Okay.
corrections on and typographical. Anyway, some small things is all she was gonna do.
So
Okay.
I'll make a motion that
All
we
right.
approve the
Eva makes a motion, we approve the library policy manual.
Yes.
Don seconds it. Eva- and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
I'm sorry, I missed who made that motion.
Eva.
Eva made the motion, Don seconded it, and the only one that voted nay was Brandon, but he doesn't count. Okay, under new business, I did have the one question with the county moving to moderate. I kind of touched on this earlier. Can we just open the library doors now? What's 50% in there?
13, I think is what it is.
13 people?
Yeah.
And you said there's never even 10?
Right.
Should
So
we go away? I mean, have you thought about, just give me your thoughts on that. I'm not.
yeah, no, I'll be, yeah, we talked about it. With 13 being the max and 3 staff, that leaves you at 10. I'm happy to revisit it, but at this point we figured we were pretty much already there. So
I don't know. What did the rest?
Personally, I would just take down that appointment thing. I can't see where that's making any difference one way or the other. And if there aren't many people coming in anyway.
I would, I mean.
Well, I agree with Charlene on that, except for the fact that I have been in there a number of times, as she has too. But in the morning, you have this group that come in there to read the newspapers for one thing. And then when you don't open till noon, it's more like history than news. And you don't have that group coming in.
I don't think we've ever opened before 10:30?
10 o'clock.
10, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, my only thing is I'm recommending you at least look at the situation of maybe just saying, okay, we don't have to, if the library's open, you don't have to have an appointment, or maybe adding like the bank does, like the bank has appointment hours and then, well, that'd be too confusing. Never mind.
Right.
You've thought about it. So I'm
Yeah.
just saying with the drop to the moderate level that maybe that's something to reconsider again.
And the other thing about appointments is that a lot of the people that I see that come in there are families. You know, a mom with little kids isn't going to make an appointment to come in. She's just going to bring them in.
Well, they do it for the doctors and the dentists and
Yeah.
whatnot. So
But for a
I-
library.
They're just not used to it for a library, though.
I completely understand. I hear what you're saying. Again, our concern is if you've got 2 groups that come in, who's staying outside? And now you're asking the library staff to police. It's difficult enough to police mask wearing, but to now tell a parent who's staying outside, you got to leave one of your kids outside on the bench.
Do we know how often that actually happens, though?
They're never full. They're never full. So if somebody shows up, the phone number is on the glass.
Right.
They can knock, they can call, and then they just come in. So the appointment is preferred, but it's not.
Is that clear to people?
Again, the number's right on the glass, so I don't know what
I
else.
mean, that they can just call right then, though.
Again, the number's right on the front door. I don't know how much clearer it can be. Call for an appointment, and there's the number. So, yeah.
I just know for me, I mean, I don't go there that much, but if I was having to make it's frustrating enough at the bank.
Mhm.
So I agree with Eva. If I got a family and I'm bringing them in, I'm probably, and then if I got there, I could be confused. I have to call. Do I have to come back? So.
Yeah, I think it's problematic at best. So the sooner we can get rid of that, the better.
COVID is problematic for everybody. Absolutely.
Well, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's to keep in mind, the next evaluation, I think, is the 25th, if I remember correctly. We're moderate till that's the next evaluation period. All right, anybody else? I don't know if you have any new business. Anybody else have questions they wanted to ask? we're not banning any books, right? In the library?
We did take a couple of the Dr. Seuss books off the shelf, not because we were
What'd you
banning
do with
them. Well, we kept them, but we were afraid they were going to disappear and end up on eBay.
Right.
So those are in our collection, and we're not. I don't believe we're checking them out now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because I know none of us believe in. I'm kind of frustrated with a political spectrum that used to say let's not ban books is now saying let's ban
Ban
books.
Ban everything.
And my feeling is we don't. If you disagree with a book, you disagree with it. It doesn't mean it needs.
Just don't
should
read
be
it.
Banned.
Don't read it.
Yeah. Don't check it out. Don't read it. Don't
Right.
look at it.
Right.
That sort of thing. All right. Good.
Yeah.
I just want to.
Yeah.
I figured that's what was going on.
Yeah.
I was a little concerned about it getting stolen.
Right.
Like
Right.
Don mentioned, but
Yeah.
all right. Amy.
Okay.
All right. You're through with us. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Mm.